One of the two bombs was already running its arming sequence on the way down. The other one had a different problem. Below them, a Tobacco County was asleep, with no idea anything had left the sky. The question is not whether two hydrogen bombs loose over American farmland were dangerous. The question is how close one of them actually came to going off. That argument is still running. Each bomb carried 3.8 megatons, about 260 times the weapon that erased Hiroshima. They were not on a test range. They were riding inside an American bomber for days after a new president took office. The aircraft came apart at around 10,000 feet. The bombs left the bay the way they were built to leave it and started down toward a Tobacco County in the dark. One of them behaved like a weapon that had been ordered to work. Its parachute opened. Its arming sequence began. It came down slowly over a field outside a village called Faro. The other one did not slow down at all. This is what happened over Goldsboro that night. How far the first bomb got through its own checklist, and why the argument about how close it came is still going on. To understand why live thermonuclear weapons were in the air over North Carolina, you have to understand what the United States was afraid of in 1961. Bombers on the ground could be destroyed on the ground. A single surprise strike on American airfields could remove the ability to strike back before anyone gave an order. So the Air Force put the deterrent where it could not be caught. Under a program called Chrome Dome, armed bombers stayed airborne around the clock, loaded, fueled in flight, always in the sky. At any hour, a dozen or more American aircraft were flying with live hydrogen bombs aboard. They flew over Canada, over the Atlantic, over Spain, and over the United States. The logic was simple, and it was not stupid. A weapon in the air cannot be destroyed at its base. The cost of that logic was that the weapons were now flying over the people they protected. Aircraft break, wings crack, fuel leaks. Every hour of every airborne alert was an hour in which ordinary mechanical failure could put a thermonuclear weapon somewhere nobody had planned for. On the 23rd of January 1961, a B-52 Stratofortress lifted off from Seymour Johnson Air Force Base, just outside Goldsboro, North Carolina, with two Mark 39 bombs in the bay. The flight was routine. A 24-hour orbit along the Atlantic coast, with two refuelings from tankers in the air. The first one went normally. It was on the second rendezvous, near midnight, that the tanker crew noticed something wrong. The bomber's right wing was bleeding fuel into the dark. The refueling was stopped. The tanker pulled away. The bomber was told to hold position off the coast, burn down its remaining fuel, and come home light. But it was not a weep. It was a structural failure already in progress. In 3 minutes, the aircraft lost 37,000 pounds of fuel through a wing that was tearing itself open. The leak was in the wing tank area, and the B-52G carried an enormous amount of its fuel in the wings. A wing that is losing fuel that fast is a wing that is coming apart. The crew turned for the base. At 10,000 feet, on approach, the wing gave up. Whatever was still holding it to the aircraft stopped holding. From the ground, it would have looked like an aircraft coming into land, and then simply stopping being an aircraft. It began to spin, and it began to shed itself. The aircraft went out of control. The order came to abandon it. 8 were aboard. 5 got out through their seats and their hatches. 3 did not. 2 men never left the aircraft. A third got clear of it and did not survive the landing. The bomber hit the ground near Faro and burned. When a bomber breaks up, the weapons go too. As the airframe rotated and tore, both Mark 39 bombs were released from a bay. A Mark 39 is not a simple object. It is a two-stage thermonuclear weapon with its own parachute, its own timers, its own switches, and its own idea of what a legitimate drop looks like. It is built to become dangerous only in a specific order. Leave the aircraft, run the timer, sense the altitude, close the last switch. Only then can it fire. The first bomb went through that order. The lanyard pulled. The parachute deployed exactly as designed. The bomb descended under canopy, on course, doing what it would have done over a target. It landed in a field near Faro and hung up at a tree by its own shroud lines. Its case was intact. Its parachute was intact. It was, in every visible sense, a working bomb. When the disposal team examined it, they found that of the arming steps that stood between that field and a 3.8 megaton detonation, all but one had already been completed. The step that had not completed was a switch. Not a guard, not a code, not a person. A small electrical switch in the weapon that had stayed in the safe position. The officer who ran the disposal work at Goldsboro, a young explosive ordnance lieutenant named Jack Ravel, spent days at the site. He said later that what he saw in that field frightened him for the rest of his life. The bomb was taken down, made safe, and trucked away. In the fields around Faro, farmers went back to work overground. The Air Force was still searching. The second bomb had a different night. Its parachute did not deploy. It fell free from around 2,000 feet with nothing slowing it down. It struck a muddy field off Big Daddy's Road at an estimated 700 miles an hour. It did not stop at the surface. It went in. The weapon broke apart on impact. Its high explosive shattered rather than fired. What was left of it drove itself down through soft, water-soaked ground and kept going. The Air Force dug. They recovered the first stage. They recovered the arming components, and when they read them, the reading was worse than the bomb in the tree. On this weapon, the ready safe switch was not in the safe position. It had moved to armed. The thing that saved the first bomb had not saved the second one. It did not detonate because the impact tore the weapon apart before any firing signal could reach anything. It was destroyed faster than it could work. The digging went on for days. Groundwater kept filling the hole. Eventually, the excavation stopped, with the thermonuclear stage of the weapon and its uranium still in the ground. The Air Force bought an easement over the land instead. No digging, no building, no wells. The stage is still down there, under a field somebody farms. It is worth being accurate about what is buried. It is not a functioning bomb waiting to go off. It is the uranium stage of a weapon whose firing system was destroyed on impact. The site has been monitored for decades, and the groundwater testing has not shown contamination. The problem with the buried stage is not that it is dangerous. It is that it is still there. In 1961, the public was told there had been a crash, that weapons were aboard, and that there had never been any danger of a nuclear explosion. 8 years later, a weapons engineer at Sandia National Laboratories, Parker F. Jones, wrote an internal review of what had actually happened to Goldsboro. He gave it a title that tells you how he felt about it. Goldsboro Revisited, or How I Learned to Mistrust the H-Bomb. The document stayed classified until 2013, when a Freedom of Information request by the writer Eric Schlosser pulled it into daylight. One sentence from it went around the world. That is the sentence that made Goldsboro famous, and it deserves to be read carefully because it is not the only informed opinion about that night. Jones was not writing propaganda. He was writing an internal safety review for the laboratory that designed the weapon, and his conclusion was that the Mark 39 was not adequately safe for airborne alert. That is the uncomfortable part. The criticism did not come from a campaigner or a journalist. It came from inside the building where the bomb was designed. Goldsboro was not unique either. The United States has admitted dozens of accidents serious enough to be classified as broken arrows, and several weapons have never been recovered. Armed bombers kept flying anyway. Airborne alert ran until 1968, when a bomber burned on the ice at Thule in Greenland, and the program was finally ended. The Air Force position has never changed. The weapons could not have produced a nuclear yield because the safety system was designed for exactly this, and the safety system held. Weapons engineers have made a stronger version of the same point. A ready-safe switch that refuses to close during an unintended fall is not luck. That is the switch working. There's also a real question about whether a Mark 39 that had already been torn out of disintegrating aircraft could have completed a clean firing sequence at all. Both things can be true. The last barrier was designed to hold, and the last barrier was the last barrier. On one weapon it held, on the other one it did not. What a 3.8 megaton detonation would have done to eastern North Carolina is not really in dispute. Goldsboro, Faro, and everything between them would have ceased to exist. Where the fallout would have depended on the wind that night. The estimates that put it over Washington, Baltimore, and further north are estimates, not measurements. There is a small state highway marker beside the road now, at Eureka, North Carolina. Most drivers pass it without slowing down. 2 hydrogen bombs came down here in the dark. One of them hung in a tree with a single switch left between it and the end of the stake. The other one went into the mud and stayed. The tobacco field is still farmed. The bomb is still under it.